Welcome back to yet another Friday Winked Unplugged. And I'm going to start with a story. So, yesterday I actually had to go to the passport office to get my new passport. And given COVID, I haven't quite figured out the timing of things as yet. So, I was running a little bit late because I needed to get a passport size picture. And people at FedEx, there was only one person, she was amazing, and she was managing like 15 different customers. And so even keeled, it was amazing. But because of that, I was running a little bit late. And as I was rushing towards the passport office, there were people on the street. There was a group of kids. I want to say youngsters, not kids, and they were raising funds for some children's nonprofit. And as I was crossing the street, the person looks up to me and says, "Hi, it seems like you're a friendly person. Do you have 2 minutes?" And I was quite surprised because I was actually in quite a hurry and I wasn't kind of looking left or right or smiling. And I said, "I'm running a little bit late. Today might be a little bit tough, but on my way back, if you're still here, I'll talk to you." And I went a little bit ahead, crossed the road, and the same organization, there was somebody with the same t-shirt, and they said, "Hi," there were so many, there must have been like hundreds of people on the street because New York is back to normal. And they picked me and said, "Hi, do you have 2 minutes? I just want to talk to you about children, and it seems like you might care." And again, of course, I couldn't because I was running late, and I said, "Not today, and I'll come back and I'll talk to you." And this interaction made me pause yesterday because both of them, one said, "You look friendly, so I want to chat with you." The other one was like, "It seems like you care about children." And there were so many people and they could have spoken to anybody. And for those of you who've ever been on a street and wanted help, you normally look at people who are a little bit more approachable, maybe a little bit more friendly, and want to talk to them. And the reason why this interaction yesterday really stayed with me is if I rewind 18, 19 years back when I came to this country, if my mom and myself were walking in Philadelphia, which is where I was, and there was a tourist that was lost, they would never ask me for directions. They would always ask my mom for directions, or my friend, or whoever was with me. Because I guess at that time, I did not give out the vibe of being friendly and approachable. In fact, I remember a friend of mine telling me, much later after we became friends, and she said, "Ruchika, the first feeling I felt when I met you for the first time was fear and judgment." And it's true, because I was all about myself, super judgmental, and in a huge hurry to get to some place that I didn't really know where I was going. And to me, as I look over the last 18 years, what has really changed is one big interaction that has changed the direction of my life. And that is meeting Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I call him Gurudev. And I think, a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the meditations, and consistently kind of practicing all of that has really helped me move from this person that nobody ever wanted to talk to on the street to, every random person wanting to talk to me in a language that they think they can understand. And I think your vibe changes, and that happened to me because of Gurudev. But we'll get into that another time. For today, given that next week is a full moon, and it's the full moon of the teacher, right, is a great time for those of us who are looking for freedom from our own mind, freedom from our own likes and dislikes, freedom from our own concepts, because those are the things that really bind us, right? So those of us who are in that journey, inward journey of finding freedom from ourselves in some way so we can be the best version of ourselves, it's a really big day. While it's called the full moon of the teacher, it's actually the full moon of the student, because this is the time when we reflect back on the last 365 days and look at how far we may or may not have come. And I think all of us do this. We do this all the time, right? Some of us do it on New Year's Eve and say, "Oh, how was the year? What has changed? How have I grown?" Some of us might do it just before our birthday and say, "Okay, I'm a year older, and what has changed, and where have I grown, and what is my intentionality for next year?" And a lot of us do it during this time. So I invite you to also reflect back on the last 365 days, from July of last year to July of this year, and see what all has changed. And as I was reflecting about it yesterday, because I did go and look back not just in the last 365 days, but the last 18 years on how maybe just my vibe and how I show up, I wanted to be more specific about the last 365 days. So there are 3 lessons that I have picked up in the last 3 years, the last one year that I can think of. The first one, so I was, for those of you who know, I was working in a really large company and built on a lot of success. And I think a lot of times when you are coming from a place of success, you play to keep the success, right? And now I'm in a startup. I've started the own company and there's nothing really to lose. And I've noticed such a monumental shift in mindset. Do you show up to win or do you show up not to lose? And when I say win, I mean it loosely. I mean with no constraints in our mind. We show up with no fear of failure. We show up because of joy. We show up because we can be anything that we want to do. And as kids, we all had that. If you ask a little kid, 3, 4 years old, what do they want to be? They can be anything that they want. From an engine driver to a policeman to a superhero. Whereas we've started putting blinkers and, constraints in what we want to be. And that limits us. It makes us live a life that is much smaller than our potentiality. And we call it practicality, we call it growing up. But having seen that in the last year, I can tell you it has nothing to do with growing up. It has nothing to do with practicality. It just has a shift in mindset. So that has been my biggest lesson in the work front. The other one, another lesson that I've had is around relationships. And often in places of conflict in a relationship, be it at work, with colleagues, or even with family, or with my husband, I would say something. I would normally never lose my cool, but I would say something and I would get such a strong reaction back. And I would wonder how my words trigger such a strong reaction. And when somebody else would say the same words, they probably don't garner the same kind of reaction. And it would really baffle me. Like, what am I saying to people that I can trigger them? Because I know I can. Let's be honest about it. And I realize it's not so much my words. It's the underlying frustration that I might be feeling. It's the underlying judgment that I may have. It's the underlying impatience that I may have. That is what people are reacting to. They're not reacting to words. And somebody else says exactly the same words, but the feeling or the space that they're coming with or coming from is completely different. So people are responding to the space that we come from. And I've known it intellectually, but for me, the penny dropped in such big ways because this year, as we've been working with different kind of freelancers and people, people I've never met in my life, it's taught me so much about interacting and where I'm coming from and what people react to. So my second lesson has been much more about looking at the purity of the place I'm coming from, the even keelness that I'm coming from. And if I'm coming from a very even keel place, even if the message is a little harsh, people take it really well. So that's one. The second one around relationships that I've realized is my relationship with myself. I realized very recently, and I was having this conversation with my husband, where I think, trust has been one of the things that I've been unpacking for myself a very long time. And I realized that I have a tough time trusting myself, not in every aspect, right? If it comes to a business meeting or it comes to work, there is confidence, so trust comes easily. I trust my own gut, I trust my intuition. But there are lots of areas where I don't trust my own judgment. And for me, the lesson is to learn to trust my own inner voice, because more often than not, it's on the money. I just have to learn to trust it. So that's going to be my lesson for next year, but it's at least an awareness that I have. The third one that's been coming to me right now is going back again a year. For Guru Purnima, for over a decade, more than a decade, we've been spending every Guru Purnima with Gurudev. And it's joyful. There are like thousands of people we're celebrating, and there's just this energy that kind of lifts you up. Everybody's reflecting back, and it's like one big global family reunion. Think of it like a huge wedding, and everybody's coming together and everybody's catching up, and there's joy and chaos and all of that, right? And of course, being with Gurudev is super special. And last year was the first one in many years that we couldn't be with him physically because it was COVID, and of course, it was online. And while a part of me was really happy that we could still be with him online, a part of me was really not, was very disappointed, and maybe a tad bit even angry that I could not be there. And for me, this lesson over the last 1 year has been to recognize that, you know, people that you love and people that you respect, be it even your own family members and the guru, are always with you. And the guru is not just a personality, it is an energy, it's an energy field. And life can be a teacher, life can be your guru, right? And that energy field is always with you and always accessible to you inside. And so instead of looking for it on the outside, for me, it's been literally 180 degrees looking for it on the inside. It hasn't been an easy one because I've gone again and again trying to look for it on the outside. But I think last year I didn't really have a choice. And sometimes when you don't really have a choice is when you have to sit with that lesson, go through it until it becomes part and parcel of your experience. And today I'm so grateful to be able to access that energy and that connection and that love that I feel for so many people just by shutting my eyes sometimes or just being quiet and knowing and tapping into them at that moment. So those have been my three lessons, one around job, one around relationships, and one about just life and connecting to everything in a way that I wasn't quite able to do before. So I'm just going to pause over there and see what your lessons might have been or anything that triggered for you as I was talking, because it's really important that, you know, at least once a year, a few times a year, we just disconnect from everything, connect back with ourselves and see how much we have changed, what have been our biggest ahas, and internalize it, because so many times we have these ahas, but if you don't take a minute to internalize it, it just dissipates, it just disappears, right? So awareness of these ahas is really important, and also pausing and celebrating the changes, celebrating how far we've come. You know, so often we're so obsessed about how far we need to get to, and we don't look back and say, oh my God, we've come such a long way. We have changed. We're not the same person we were so many years back. You know, I can barely relate to the person I was 15, 20, 30 years back. So I think just pausing over there and celebrating this moment and kind of moving forward with intentionality, because otherwise life will happen to us rather than us having a little bit of awareness and intentionality in the way we move in our lives. So I'm seeing Supriya's here. Hey Supriya, it's always good to see you. It's so nice. And Mom's here, and I see a few other people. How's everyone? Anything that you want to share today? Anything that you have noticed in yourself that has changed in the last 1 year or the last 20 years, whatever it is, as you kind of reflect back on yourself. So I'm waiting because I know it takes a little bit of time for comments to come in. And if you haven't, then I would just say over the next few days, today, tomorrow, weekend, till our next full moon, which is I believe next Friday, just truly take a little bit of time and reflect back, pause and celebrate yourself, because this is the full moon of the student and we're all students of life. Okay, so on that, I'll see you again. Maybe not next Friday, it might be Thursday, because I'm going to be in a silence retreat for 5 days, connecting back with myself. So I will let you guys know whether we do it on Thursday or we'll do it the Friday after. Have a great, great, great week. See you. Bye.